Okay, everyone, after this video message from Nagesh, who's our Senior VP in APAC, we're going to start with our first panel. And the name of that panel discussion is Roadmap for Pakistan's Gaming Industry. I'm going to start calling our guests for today. So we're going to start with Ali Ihsan, who is CEO of FRAG Games. We have Ahsan Imtiaz, who's from Cloudcity Metaverse. We have Masooma Zeeshan, who's co-founder of GameTrain. And last but not least, we have Qasim M. Asad, who's studio director from Mindstorm.
Great. Thank you, everyone, for coming in today. It is our pleasure to host you to Payoneer's Tech CEO Summit. I'm Nida, I'm the marketing manager at Payoneer, and I'll be moderating this amazing discussion with such amazing industry veterans that we have today. So first of all, I think we're already off to a great start. One of the challenges is already highlighted, and we're going to go deeper into how, despite all odds, this industry has stood out in recent times and made a mark for itself. So just as an intro or context to why we chose this topic, so Pakistan is a hidden treasure for the gaming industry worldwide. With investors and global gaming platforms taking note of the industry and investing in it, it is safe to say that the gaming industry of Pakistan has truly arrived. However, it is still fragmented with room for immense data-backed growth strategy. It is important to sit down and identify a clear roadmap and pathway for the future. In lieu of this realization, we have invited an esteemed panel of industry veterans. First up, we have Ali Ihsan. He is CEO of FRAG Games and VP at Pasha. Then we have Ahsan Imtiaz. He is CEO of Cloudcity Metaverse. And then we have Masooma Zeeshan. She's co-founder and CEO at GameTrain. She is also the winner of Standard Chartered Women in Tech Award. Last but not the least, we have Qasim M. Asad, who is the studio director at Mindstorm. So my first question is going to be directed at Masooma and Ihsan. So you guys have been in the industry for so long, and you've been, seen growth, you've seen challenges, and still, despite all odds, you are where you are today. So where do you see the gaming industry, or what it is commonly known as AGG vertical right now, and how it has evolved in the past 5 years? So Masooma, first you, and then Ihsan.
Yeah, so Ahsan has been here way longer than I have, so I'm humbled that I've been accepted warmly by this sector. But I think definitely the sector has a lot of promise. We know that it's here to stay. And it has grown exponentially, though I was just discussing with Ali that it is a decelerated acceleration at the point currently. So if you look at the stats from the past 5 years, they were just under 100 studios with about 6,000 team members or employees. And they had a revenue of 100 million. And now if you look at it, it is a huge jump. Now we are at about 12,000 resources in this sector with about 200 plus companies, 237 to be exact, and 12,000 more employees. So that's like a 34% growth, a 90% growth in the number of team members, but also at 300 million revenue. And we're just getting started. So though it's a decelerated acceleration, or sort of we've hit a plateau, but I think we shouldn't be discouraged at all. I must also add that this subsector meant about 10% of the IT export revenue of IT and IT services last year. Ahsan, if you'd like to add.
Yeah, I think the gaming industry has come a long way in the last 5 or 10 odd years. But there's still a long way to go. We're still very far behind when it comes to, the international standards and the international market. But it's still good to see that, we're somewhere on the map at least. When it comes to the kind of revenue that we are making, and to some extent the kind of games that we are making. There are still some games that are out there that are, playable at least. So yeah, it has been a journey, and I think it is going to be a continued journey that is going to, be with us for a long, long time.
Great. Thank you so much, Masooma, for sharing those facts. Very, very helpful for all of us. And I think paints a very clear picture of where we are. And thank you, Ihsan, for adding onto it. So now we've talked about where we have come in the last 5 years. The next obvious question would be, where do we see ourselves in the next 5 years? So for that, I'll hand it over to Ali and then Qasim from the studio side as well, then the technical aspects.
Gee, great question. I think always the future is clouded and there's no clear vision on where we could be going. But I'll offer some humbling data points. I think it's fair to say that the global economy is in a recession. I think it's fair to say that we don't talk about it as openly because we've been talking about the success story so much that these are difficult business times. I think that Pakistan's value proposition, good talent at great cost, can survive even in these difficult times. What will be hard to do will be that the quality level of the games we make, and this is not a diss at anyone, I acknowledge that the entire industry has grown a lot and we've made a lot of money, but the next part of the equation will be, can we make good quality games? Can we get much better at UA? Can we somehow can we survive the next 2 years? Because like as much as doom and gloom a picture I would paint on recessions, I would say that Pakistan is very close to our Turkey unicorn moment for games, right? I think we're on the cusp of that billion-dollar unicorn exit, perhaps before the IT industry gets it. I think it's probably going to come from the animation and game sector first. But at the same time, recessions are a equalizing mechanism. There has been exponential growth. There was lots of money available in the market, and now that's not the case. So I think that we will go places for sure. But perhaps the immediate year ahead of us and the year that's passed, this is more a year for capitalizing our gains, normalizing them, having an operational plan which can get us through 2024 into 2025. And there, I think that the exponential growth will be back. A lot of the competition will be culled, and we could be looking at a games and animation sector which is on par where IT stands today. So I think we could hit $1 billion, $2 billion once the slump in the market has recovered. What do you think?
I'll add more to it, to be honest. The evolution of industry is an example of myself, how I evolved, my job description. So back in 2009, the game industry was like a fun, make a game, put on the store, bingo, it worked. Now when you move from 5 to 10, now it's a business. Now you have to manage all the risk management. So I believe this industry is a beast where there are 90 reasons to fail, but there's only one reason for a product to succeed. Where you have to be professional. For example, in 2009, they were only game developer and a CEO. Now it has evolved into ASO, to growth, to data science, to data engineering, to quality assurance, to creative management, to product management. So there are like 10 people, 10 to 15 different disciplines coming together. So I think where Pakistan has excelled is ASO. A lot of new jobs has evolved in that stage. So as a company where we work is like, even if you have a great product, now there are other milestones to hit. A great user acquisition, a great data team. And then also we run game as a service model. You don't like make a game, just launch it. Now you have to sustain it for next 1 decade. For example, Candy Crush has been on the store for the last 10 years. Why? Because they have systems, they have professionals that are taking the lead on how to run live operations. So I think what we need to do is, we need to come out of that phase of not just a hobby as more of a profession. So we need to have dedicated teams working on that. We need to have dedicated verticals in the studio that's growing that side. So what I see in the last 2 years, it has gone at a very rapid speed, but looking at our countries like Turkey, Vietnam, where they're heading out, I think a lot to be covered, but I think we're in a good phase where we can beat those guys easily. Yeah.
And that actually brings me to the next question. Thanks for mentioning Vietnam. So Vietnam, Turkey, Finland are usually referred to as the gaming economy. So when we look at Pakistan, are we benchmarking against them? What are the challenges that they have that they overcome? And what are the challenges that we have currently which we need to overcome in order to be like them? And just keeping in mind all the scenarios that we have or what the status quo for Pakistan is, which country should we really be benchmarking ourselves against? So this is for Ali and Ihsan, and feel free to add and jump in and,
I'm going to speak very little on this because I think Qasim would have the most relevant expertise to talk about it. But I think you mentioned 3. Let me clarify quickly that I don't think Finland is a benchmark for us. I think Finland is literally the apex predator in this space. Turkey is where we could be going, right? Turkey is one big step ahead of us in the ecosystem. And Vietnam is with us in that journey to try and get to Turkey. So for those that are not familiar, Turkey is renowned for the fact that a couple of years back they had some high value acquisitions. Unicorns got created overnight. They had a bit of the Kareem effect in which founders from those unicorns, when they exited, they formed new unicorns of their own. And that is the dream. That is where I see ourselves 2-3 years from now. But where Vietnam is probably where we are. But the details of this elude me. For those that don't know, I operate more in the game services sector. Qasim is the relevant expert on where we are on the game publishing and mobile game development side, so I'll let him take over and answer.
So regarding Vietnam, if you take example, they were lucky enough to have the presence of international studios that done services. So these guys like Sega, they trained those local developers. And what happened when they left, they had a really good pool of people that were trained enough. So in Pakistan, back in 2000, when we have North-based solution, where they were making games like Tap Tap Fish, we have a lot of expertise. So if the right example is Turkey, it's very close. We have worked with people, we're currently working with teams like Turkey, and they are phenomenal. But we say we do have a lot of good resemblance where we are heading. One thing for sure in Turkey, it is not the government that have took the initiative, it is the industry that took initiative. And from there, they pushed the universities to make the curriculum. So it is not like universities, government, then university, industry, it is on the other end. So I think we are also heading in a very similar direction. So where publishing comes up, publishing is a very different thing. To be honest, like if you spend $100 for a campaign and you expect $150 come in, it's very easy. You can see $100 campaign running. But when you run like $50,000 campaign on daily basis, no, you cannot run on human level. You need to have a tools, automations, the data science teams that can understand the risk. And if you are spending like $100,000 today, now you need a prediction model to tell you, okay, are we going to recoup that money or not? So I think this is one of the area where we can have exponential growth. And I believe that studios like in Pakistan, if you want to evaluate where we're heading, it is like what is the maximum budget you are spending on any product. So I think in Pakistan, we have a capacity to run $10,000 daily budget campaign, not more than that. In US, they run like $150,000, $250,000 a day. So this requires professionalism. This requires a very dedicated team. So I think the time will cross that. I think 2015, we were running only $100 campaign. Then it beefed up to $250, $300. Now I believe there are studios in Pakistan that are running those $10,000 per day campaigns on one product. Multiply by that 10 and you get a very good revenue for that. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Ihsan, I think you wanted to do.
Yeah, so I'm in the same boat as Ellie. I'm not an expert in the publishing side of things. I run a services studio myself. But an overall, observation that I've seen of the publishing, side of things as well is that we are not very proactive. We, wait for setbacks to happen, and then we're like, okay, what are we going to do now? That's one observation. And then the other observation is that once we are in that it also kind of relates with the first observation that we are not, we don't want to get out of comfort zones. When we are, so for example, right now my understanding is that the major rev comes from ad revenue, right? And when, there's a setback from Google and then we're like, yaar, Google ne kya kar diya? Matlab, hamara kya kasoor hai? But you have to understand that I think that for your game to be a successful game, it needs to have, really good hook, a really good hook, right? And then for in-app purchases to tie in with the hook. And then in-app purchases should be your main, source of revenue and not just ads. So I think these are some things, although, again, I'm not an expert on that side of things, but I think I'm still a gamer, right? I do play a lot of games. So I understand that this is the model that we need to explore, and we need to, show ad revenue should be, part of your revenue, but it should not be your major revenue.
Great, thank you so much for sharing that. So Qasim mentioned about the bottoms-up approach, like, we need to do it, industry has to be proactive and, rather than it coming down from the government. So Masooma, my next question to you would be, given this that realization that we need to do a bottoms-up approach. Currently, where do we stand in terms of challenges and the level of skill and the level of talent that we have, and how can we actually execute this bottoms-up approach? Because I assume you guys are the industry, so you are the custodians for that.
Yeah, we are part of the industry. Thank you, Nida. So I think there are certain challenges we do not have a control on, just like the socio-political economic environment of the country, just like the electricity outage a few seconds ago. So certain things we have no control on. And then that's also with the rapid technological advances and the fact that there's a brutally, there's a brutal, cutthroat environment globally with respect to that ecosystem, so you've got to compete with them. But what are the challenges that we do have control over? And I'll talk about a few which are close to my heart, but there's, of course, limited access to capital. There is a lack of sustained and supportive policies. There's the fact that we do not have the technological infrastructure available. Those are there, but something close to mine and Game Train's heart is the lack of skilled resources. And I know that all of our panelists have spoken about this. So we time and time again have heard that there are about 25 to 30,000 IT grads that enter the market each year, but out of that, just 20% are employable, though that is also a question mark. So what can we do about them, right? And then the question comes about how to tap into them and how to have those meaningful industry academic linkages, because the universities are doing a great job, but they have outmoded curriculum, and they've got to partner increasingly, and there are a lot of beautiful initiatives. I'd like to think Game Train is one, but the entire industry is the major backbone. There's M Labs, there's so many others who are trying to do the same thing together so that the curriculum, and there are more offerings for the students as well. So sort of FYEPs, internships, workshops, game jams, all of those can be done, but need to be done at a much more frequency. And then if we can sort of embed those structures into university level, that the industry can do what their core job is, which is not trainings. I'd like to think develop great games. And the last thing I'd like to mention is also have more inclusion of women, because we are women. So more in the industry, as per Pasha's AGG report, which I read last night, there are about 17% women in the gaming sector, and that's not bad, but that's not great either. So more women, sort of policies for them, but also sort of incentivizing them, because I feel it is also, the onus is on you and I, Nida. Do we want to enter the workforce? And that's an entirely different discussion for us to be at boardroom level, right? So all of these things are challenges, and I'll open it to the others to add.
Great. Ali, you want to add something to it?
You're going to have to repeat the question. I was fascinated by the statistics.
No. Basically, she talked about like the bottoms-up approach. We were talking about that and how we are going to be the custodians for making it happen.
I'm going to be talking here later, and I don't want to give away too many spoilers, but I feel that I agree with Qasim on the fact that the reality is that we're going to have to do it on our own. However, I feel that the reality should not stop us from talking about the fact that if you want an industry to bloom in a country, relying on bottoms up is like saying people want to make money and they will struggle, और वो हाथ पैर मारेंगे और तैरना सीख जाएंगे. हम तो उनको डुबा ही रहे हैं. This is it's a very defensive stance to take. I think it is important to be very vocal about the fact that it is somebody else's job to plan the economy. We are supposed to benefit from that planning, and we are supposed to be able to accelerate to higher goals because of which. Masooma said it's not our job to be training skilled resources. Qasim's team, M Labs, is literally trying to fill that Sega ka gap ke they are in there in the universities, लोगों को दिखाने के लिए कि नहीं आप भी अच्छी गेम बना सकते हो. हाँ, all of this will pay dividends, I do not doubt. But I think it's equally important to highlight that for the explosion to happen, the ecosystem will have to be conducive. If we can reach our hand 90% across, then the government will have to reach 10% across and eventually shake that hand, right? Not chop it off. So ये stark statement, but it is the reality. हम कर लेंगे, मगर मदद मिल जाए तो क्या ही बात है.
So, but regarding this, there are different models. One model is services models, where, for example, every person like in the room will get charged $3,000 per month. That is scalable on the basis of seats. The other model is product model. There are only 5 people can make a brilliant product, and you can make $1 million, $2 million a year. That's a starting point. So both, the training ground for both these sides is very different. So what we believe is, in a classroom, put the cream, the top 5% into the product side, the rest into services, because Pakistan will become a services hub. So that is the learning ground, the pathway is totally different for those. So we need to understand which model the companies are following and what benefits us.
Great. Ihsan, so basically my next question, I think you guys have already answered, but that was about what should be the framework or roadmap for the industry to grow in a programmatic or systematic way. So I think he's already mentioned and you guys have all covered. So Ihsan, if you could share a little bit on that as well.
Yeah, I mean, all of the amazing panelists have already mentioned, most of what I was going to say. Look, our job is to, make products and sell them, obviously, and bring dollar in to the economy. And the government's job is to make it easier for us to do that, right? There are so many problems in terms of payment gateways. There's so many problems in terms of, the fluctuating dollar rate, for example. The dollar that we are spending, the rate for that is different. The dollar that we are getting, the rate for that is different. And there's an immediate loss on that, right? So, like Ali said, then वही वाली बात आ जाती है कि हम आपको दुबा रहे हैं और आपने हाथ पर खुद मारे, तो जब हम हाथ पर खुद मारेंगे तो फिर डॉलर, फिर we are going to find ways on how we are going to, not make losses, for example.
जब हम हाथ पैर मारेंगे तो डॉलर कहीं भी जा सकता है.
Exactly. मैं कहना नहीं चाह रहा था, but yes, तो डॉलर कहीं भी जा सकते हैं, right? But obviously we want to bring dollar in. We want to make, things easier for us. We obviously do want to add to the economy, but for that there need to be policies that help us do that. You can't ask us to bring dollar in if you're not letting us, if you're not making policies and asking us to do a certain thing, right? You have to go, it goes hand in hand. So these are just stressful things that are, we can go on and on about, but the question is, when are we actually going to sit down and, sort these issues out?
I'd like to add, it's not all doom and gloom, ji. We've actually shared the positive side of this industry so often in the last year that I think I can put in the word. We've talked to a lot of people in Turkey, in Saudi, in Vietnam, and they've identified that we're on the right track. It's not just a hypothetical right track. Let's talk about the steps that have been taken, jiski wajah se we very much are on the right track. The industry is now collaborative more than ever. There is a national WhatsApp group. Every single CXO is added there. All discussions are not about cricket match and memes. They're about the work. Open sharing on what is the best way to advertise, what is the best way to hire, what skills do we need for training, what kind of what kind of projects can we collaborate on. These things are happening. We're attending conferences together. There is a lot of knowledge sharing happening. Babar, who's a mentor of mine as well, and the CEO of Mindstorm, he's in there from AppLovin's perspective, telling us what we need. Google is collaborating. The ecosystem is very cohesive. We're taking up the training challenge. We're taking up the push to make products. We have managed to pivot the conversation within the CEO's mindset to be like that, yes, we need to make good products and yes, we need to spend money on them. These are already monumental achievements which put us on track for that explosion. I think with due credit to them, we still talk about the challenges because yes, things can be great and challenging at the same time, because when you're making millions, then your challenges are lower scale. But if you dream of making billions, then you need to face the challenges which are going to stop you from making those billions.
Well said. So on that point, I'm sure you must have already covered it, but Pasha recently also published its first report on EGG ecosystem. So if you guys can, Masooma, Qasim, if you guys can share a few points.
Read more, to be honest.
I'm going to share some key findings because I happen to have read it, but also there are those who worked on the report. So I'd like some help, guys. So I think, one, it was a fabulous first-time effort. I would like to, so I'd like to have a round of applause for Pasha and M Labs because, they did a fantastic job. We have these discussions, these conversations, these knowledge-sharing forums, but to just read it all together from the country once was great. And they covered literally the depth and the breadth of it. So from all the challenges and all the opportunities, there was a SWOT, and certain key findings were where immediate sort of focus is needed, which is the lack of skills and how the industry is already coming together and needs to be covered, female representation, how academia needs to also, Ali mentioned 90 and 10, I would say 80 and 10 and 10. So academic institutes, one stats that I'd like to share from the report, which was an eyebrow raiser for me, was that if there are about 250 universities, 50 of them now do have some sort of workshops, diploma, or even, degree programs around animation, graphics, and gaming. And I know that wasn't available back at the time that I graduated, certainly even when the others graduated. So there's steps that are being made in the right direction. Sustainable policies which help, which are, the payment mechanisms that Ihsan mentioned, some things that the others mentioned too, if there was just more support. And another thing in the report that was interesting was that everybody is trying to sort of reach out for capital and to raise funds. So they're reaching out, about 62% reached out, but there's been limited success. There are few success stories. And so then more knowledge sharing and more government support would be helpful, because individuals are supporting and sharing their success stories. And if anyone wants to add, these are the things that I learned from.
Since I was spearheading the report and it's such a collaborative industry effort, I'll openly say that if Qasim's team or Yasser's team, which is a subset, hadn't helped us, we wouldn't have made it. I think it's very important to talk about why reports are necessary. So I'm going to do a bit of a tangent, right? We're not cowboys. We shouldn't be. This shooting from the hip behavior on which industry should be supported is absolute BS, right? And I'm going to call it. I think that the first thing you need for decision making is sound data. With that data, how fast is this sector expanding? What is its growth rate? How much money is it earning? How many people are employed? This gives you a sound background to do policy decisions. I find it borderline absurd that the games and animation industry, which is a subsector of the IT industry, has this very collaborative report in which the CEOs actually gave what they considered critical data to pile in and be like, these are the figures and this is what our challenges are. जबकि हैरानगी से ये रिपोर्ट IT इंडस्ट्री के लिए, the super parent industry के लिए missing है. Nobody has an idea कि सब सेक्टर में कितनी BPO companies हैं, कितने call centers हैं, कौन कितने पैसे बना रहे हैं. We have some names in front of us, right? And we just go to them and assume that their word is the relevant data science behind how to make policy decisions. So I think the report is a landmark step. The Vietnam ecosystem does not have this report. The Saudi ecosystem does not have this report. Meaning that those ecosystems don't have it, and we have it, and that's great. It now will give you a database benchmark for kya cheezein ki jayein so the sector can be grown, and I think this is a massive win, and kudos for everybody who brought it together.
A great round of applause, guys. Later on. Okay, go ahead. I don't have the mic, so yeah. Can we have someone who can hold the mic? He's sending the mic.
I talk about a collaborative environment. We would be the spitting epitome of Pakistan if we said we love collaboration, but please don't ask us any questions. That mic is not on.
That nice.
Just say your question. I will reiterate it for the crowd and then I'll answer it.
It's working. Okay, I'm not going to take a lot of your time. Sorry for interrupting, but because this topic is also close to my heart, I've been working on entrepreneurship and career counseling since 2013. So I used to work with a guy from Silicon Valley, Usman Rashid, who came to Pakistan for developing 2 apps and introducing them to different schools and the industries. So I was working with him as a customer success manager. Now, there are 2 points that I really wanted to discuss, and I think, it's really, really important. You guys, if you guys want to know me, I'm Ali Bakir Khan. I'm running an association, Youth Alumni Association, just to make sure the core most important thing that we guys need to focus on right now, be it a unicorn company, gaming industry, or anything XYZ in Pakistan, is to focus on career counseling and then develop entrepreneurs out of it. Why? Because based on my experience, since you also mentioned a couple of pointers that I've mentioned here, that based on statistics and based on the dollar rate, that's something different. Talk about China. They have just, collaborated their population in a way that now today it's one of the topmost economies. I still remember back in 2010 when I used to hear podcasts of China, they were actually planning to do that and then executing it. So long story short, my experience was when I used to go to different institutes or colleges and schools, I'm not going to name, but it was tier 1, tier 2 and tier 3, all of the schools. So they did not want to invest in any app, including Vidmaker and InClass. These were the two apps. And the guy was from Silicon Valley, United States of America. And the person who developed the app was from EA Sports. So just letting you know that we have to have the mindset in which we are giving equal opportunities to everyone to go ahead and discuss about this agenda. And if we are not going to focus on entrepreneurship, I think whatever we are doing, it's going to lead towards nowhere. That's just a suggestion, but thank you so much, guys. I mean, that's, if you would like to add on.
But there's no question, right?
Question is, what do you personally think about entrepreneurship related to the gaming industry? Do you think that we need to come up with more and more entrepreneurs? That's my question. Thank you.
I'd love to answer that question, but very concisely. We don't have Harvards and Stanfords. Our students out of college are not mentally prepared to be entrepreneurs. And I feel कि ये जो entrepreneurship का ढंडोरा पीटा गया है ना, इसने एक पूरी generation का सत्यानाश कर दिया है. We do not believe in rational, iterative business models which can earn money. We tend to have this belief that हमारा बच्चा उठेगा और वो कल का unicorn बना देगा. Not from this ecosystem. ठीक है? I think it's important to say that when you talk about the Silicon Valley, what role have UC Berkeley, Stanford grads played in that? They are a league above what we are capable of for multiple reasons. A, they are highly privileged students. Half of their parents, if they can afford to send them to Stanford, they can probably afford to angel fund their startup. This is not me saying that I do not believe in the entrepreneurship ecosystem or कि हमें startups को encourage नहीं करना चाहिए. But I feel sometimes the national discourse can get distorted to the point where instead of focusing on the sector and the companies that are already making money and figuring out how can you 5x their money, we have started focusing on how can we produce unicorn startups in Pakistan. And my blunt one question rebuttal to your question, like, you know, this discussion is, and where is that unicorn 5 years later? Are we any closer to getting it today? The system has to be encouraged. The system does have to be encouraged. And I think that there are entrepreneurs sitting in the crowd today. But we shouldn't bend over backwards to assume that the unicorn is right around the gate. The system has to be encouraged, but traditional business has to be allowed to flourish as well. Thank you.
Yeah, I would like to add to, you know, what Ali said. Okay, there's a difference between an entrepreneur in the Silicon Valley versus an entrepreneur here. The entrepreneur in the Silicon Valley, when they're thinking of a unicorn, they have that target audience that they can, you know, entertain to. And so if you look at India, for example, the unicorns out of there, you know, they cater to their local audience, you know, they make products for the local audience. But if we talk about Pakistan, you know, there is no unicorn, right? We've been in the IT industry for a while now, and name one unicorn out of Pakistan. There's a reason for that, because we don't have that audience that is, you know, that can consume whatever product that you're going to make. So we need to, and the reason why I'm bringing up this point is that exactly what Ali said, we need to first educate an entrepreneur that, you know, you can't just go out there, क्योंकि हम सब ने ये किया, अली ने भी किया है कि भाई हम product बनाएंगे, हम game बनाएंगे, हम ये करेंगे, and we have wasted a lot of money in that process, you know. So we need to educate, we need to, you know, there needs to be a process through which an entrepreneur needs to be, you know, taken through, and not just tell them कि यार entrepreneur बनना तुमने, तो ये तरीका है और बस चलो शुरू हो जाए.
So regarding on that, I have 4 mentors. Tintash mein I had 3 mentors, Murad, Jazib, Manan. All 3 were for Stanford. I was lucky enough. Right now our CEO is also from Stanford, Babar Ahmed. Our CTO was from UT Austin. I'm telling you, when they landed in Pakistan back in 2009, the vision had, I want to make the best product. The word was I. Because when you have this ego that I want to make, it's not I, it's the customer where you're in. You need to understand the rules of the game. You cannot like land from Stanford, Pakistan, let's make the next Candy Crush. Understand the people around you, understand the SWOT analysis, what are strengths and where we can lead to. It's not like Dukiya Male, Choke Male, then go for a 6th. So it took us a decade. We made the first cricket evolution game that was by ICC. It was a successful on the commercial side, but it was a fail on the financial side. We moved to idle games. It was success for 3 years and it failed. We made word games. It was success for 1 year. We failed because Zynga was competition where you want to get a user for $20. We cannot compete those guys. They were running an event in Zynga जहाँ पे जैसा ये लोग customers बैठे वहाँ पर लोग आते हैं for those events where they have like events celebrating the success stories. So I think it's a mindset you need to change. It's not just the revenue. It is the mindset of the product that you have to serve the customers. Think of this, why we are here. Because Payoneer want to connect with the customers, what they are feeling. So when the last time we actually asked our game customer, what do you think about our game? Let's take a call. Hey, what do you think? What do you should change? So I think the perception needs to be changed that we need to serve the customer. We need to have the pain. Now in the studios right now, you don't have not life to say like one time I'm making a race game, the second time I'm making Candy Crush, the third time I'm making. So you spend one genre. You specify one audience and I want to understand what are their pain points. And then you live with that. Miniclip is into sports only. Candy Crush is into puzzle games only. Rovio is with the birds only, so they cannot move out. So I think if you got the niche, if you understand the market and also know the rules, then you can succeed. So just having the entrepreneurs, I agree with you. It's a long marathon that we have. And to be honest, we are going the right direction. With FRAG game, with Revolving, with Mindstorm Studios, with OZ, with GameStorm Studios, there are a lot of studios coming up. And eventually in 3 to 2 years, they all have the appetite to make a big win. So I hope that the only thing happening is, hey, we one game called an exit for $100 million. This is when everyone will say, oh, this is the great thing. So I think this is what everyone is striving for in the industry. Thank you so much.
Great. Ali, do you wanted to add something? Okay, great. Thank you so much. I think in the interest of time, I love the conversation that's flowing, but in the interest of time, I might have to move on to our the next item in our agenda. Once again, thank you so much for being here with us. Great discussion, and we hope to continue with you guys in the coming future.
Thank you for having us. Thank you.